Okay, are we back? I've reverted my stream settings back to the original non-advanced version, and I'm hoping we're going to have smooth sailing from here. Okay, so I'm not restarting the live stream from the beginning, but we are going to continue from where we were and hope that we have better quality going forward. You know, going back to the old settings, I'm thinking it would be a lot better. But please, chat, let me know if everything looks smooth and sounds good and there's no audio delay. As far as I can tell, we're good. But please, chat. Okay. All right. Do. Cool. All right. This is a good lesson in I should do more. I mean, some of this stuff I can't control, but like the delay, that's just hardware problems. And my laptop randomly getting unplugged, that's just bad luck. And then YouTube trying to verify my identity and then ending the live stream for no reason. I can't do anything about that. And then, yeah, so anyway, I don't want to complain too much. Let's just get back into the live stream again and move on. All right, so we're going to do some RGB testing with Armory Crate real quick. 27, okay. All right. So this is the new Armory Crate. It looks cool on surface, but I think it is a downgrade in a lot of ways, and I'm not particularly impressed. For a number of different reasons. So in the past, Armory Crate had their software all in one location pretty much. Well, it's kind of two and kind of three locations, but almost all the settings were on one page with a few buttons you pressed and you went to them. And now, if you want to, say, for example, go to dedicated GPU mode, you have to click Devices. Then you have to click on here, and then you have to wait. And then here's some of the modes. So we're at True Color HDR mode right now. But actually, I'm going to turn off HDR because it messes with the lights, in my opinion, the lighting profiles. And we're going to do one zone backlight, which is what I prefer. Okay. All right. Or maybe RGB multi-zone strong. That's another good option. Okay, so here's some options down here. In the past, you could access all of those options from this page. And now you want access to the options, you have to go digging in here, and then also you want to go free up your memory or change your GPU mode. You have to go into this window now. And then there's the customizable hotkeys button, and then their lighting button, and your resource monitor. Like, it's just that they moved a lot of the stuff in other areas, and it's just less efficient now. So that's why I really wish they would just simplify, put everything on one main dashboard where everything is one click away from adjusting the setting, maybe 2 clicks away if you need to go to the advanced version of that setting. That's what it needs to be like right now. And they just did a giant step backwards for user functionality. And I've told Asus this, gave them my direct feedback on this, and hopefully they make the change sometime in the future to revert this setting back. All right. So let's just go over it how it is. So Armory Crate, you can adjust your 4 fan profiles right here. If you want to edit the manual mode, you click the Edit Manual Mode, and you can adjust the TDP for the GPU, CPU, some base overclock stuff, and your system fan. You also have your fan profile, custom fan profile you can use, and you can adjust this to be however you want it to be. But we'll just leave everything at max. We'll apply that, and we would be ramping up the fans quite heavily right now if we leave it on that, but I'll put it to turbo for now. Inside of the devices is where you get your other advanced settings, so click Devices in the top left, then you click on your laptop, and here is your FN lock, Windows key, standby, power saver, power synchronization, and your multi-zone display backlight button. So this will change how The dimming zones are used on the laptop. So again, chat, if you can let me know if the stream is going smoothly again, that would be great. Thank you. Because I just adjusted the settings again. Greetings from Ukraine. Thank you for your work. You have the most honest analysis. And what is the total consumption of the CPU and GPU on this one? I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll take a look at it in TimeSpy, but it should be around 240, 250, somewhere in that range for at least gaming workloads. Maybe more in certain games though. Okay, so you have standard mode, which allows you to switch between these three, and you have dedicated GPU mode. To switch these, you do have to do a full restart. Eco mode will disable the discrete GPU to allow you to get consistently better battery life. All right. Sadly, if you go to iGPU only mode, you won't be able to play games very well, obviously, because the iGPU on the Core 275HX sucks. It's really bad. So compare this to, say, the Zephyrus G16 with the 275H. That has the Intel Arc 140T, a much better iGPU allowing you to play games while on battery. Or the Zephyrus G14 with the Radeon 980M or 890M, one of those, I can't remember. That one's going to allow you to game really well as well on battery life. So for best gaming performance, just going to ultimate mode should help maybe a little bit, probably not that much though. All right, so under lighting, we have several options. Let's just go ahead and take a look at them. I'm going to turn off a couple of the lights here to give us some extra dim environment. I do think that the RGB implementation on this laptop is the best one ever made, probably. All right. So interesting that it's interesting that the light on the back is currently turned off, or maybe it's because there's no sound. I don't know. Aura effects. Anime Vision. I'm trying to get the Anime Vision to turn on. So it's an audio mode, that's why. Okay. You've not selected any effects, click apply. Okay. Can I just revert back to default settings? That's pretty much all I want to do. So I can put in my own custom text here in the Anime Vision settings. Gizmo Slip Tech. And we can change the font size and the speed. Probably too fast. There. All right, so I've added my YouTube channel name. Is it working? Yes. And now we have Gizmo Slip Tech on the back. And you can do other types of animation with this as well. So you can put your own name, company logo, whatever. So you can download more, apparently. of these animations. I don't know how to get it back to the default setting. Because the default animation looked really sick. It looked really cool. And now I'm not sure. Okay. Well, just know that the anime matrix does look better than what this is showing you. I don't want to spend too much time on this, troubleshooting this. I need to spend some more time learning this segment. There's a system mode, so you can show battery level. Okay, well, Armory Crate just crashed. It's not good for Armory Crate, doesn't look good. But for now, we'll just leave it on my YouTube channel name flashing. But there are a lot of different settings in here that you can play with. On Anime Vision lighting, stay activated in this scenario. Sleep mode. Lid closed. Turn off when adapter is unplugged, so we can disable that. And we'll stay active. Yep. Power saving animation. There's also boot up, shut down, and sleep animations that you can use. That's cool. Okay. And very nice. Okay, so that's the basics of the Anime Vision. I don't know why. I thought that when you tap these, it's going to just use the default Strix stuff, but and there is a library of things you can download. Maybe we need to, I don't know, I need to spend some more time on here. But it's really cool animation-wise, and let's go ahead and do some of the actual system lighting. Now that we're in a dark environment, let's go swap over to here. We'll go top down, and we'll zoom all the way out. And we can showcase some of the lighting here. I'll bring this camera back. Oh, that is beautiful. All right, so look at that. Look at those RGB effects. They are so cool. 360-degree lights going all the way around. There is an audio mode as well, which I kind of want to demonstrate here. So let me just pop that into audio mode. And for devices, we're also going to do music. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and open a music, Peter Spacey Roar. Ooh, it looks cool. So audio mode, visual mode. Another way to do it is like this. All right, and let me go ahead and get it turning. Turn the speakers down so you guys can hear me better. So, see if I can get... get it rotating. Woo. It looks so cool. So let me do a top down. And I guess for the top down, we're gonna have to scoot it over a little bit. I can't zoom out. This is as far out as I can zoom. Okay, let's see here. What's the best way to do this? Let's go here. And let's start the song again. I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. And I don't think I can make this go up any higher. It looks so cool. It just kind of tickles. Okay, let's try a couple of the other modes. One more time around, and we'll try the other mode. So cool. I mean, it is really cool. All right. See if we can lift it off. System animation, that's fine. I have the volume on the laptop set a lot lower, by the way, so the audio quality will be better than that. Okay, so let's just do some rainbow effects. Also, I think this rainbow is a different effect than this rainbow. Yeah, it's a different effect. So let me just put this here for a moment. So underneath, so if you look at the smoothness of this RGB effect, inside of the devices here, rainbow is different than inside of AuraSync selecting rainbow. Wait, now it looks pretty similar. Interesting. Because it was looking different just a moment ago. So let's go over the different settings you can do. This is static, breathing, strobing, color cycle, rainbow, comet, flash and dash, star, rainy, reactive, laser, kind of cool. And reactive is like this, wherever you touch. Rain, star, ripple. Whoa, ripple looks sick. I just kind of wish ripple had like, I don't know, some basic white lighting or something. All right, so this is rainbow, top down. Flash and dash. Comet. Color cycle. Strobing. Breathing. And static. And you can set whatever color you want as well. If you want it to be a different color, you can make it blue, for example. Okay, so those are like pretty much all the main lighting effects options. Let's have it spin one more time and take a look at what they look like. Oh, and I should also set Animavision to animation mode apply. There, okay. Now let's tilt down. All right, let me see if I can check chat. Chat has been pretty far away, so not exactly the best angle for me to check it. All right. All right. Is the blooming bad on this laptop? There's quite a bit of blooming. It's up to you if you think it's bad, though. Hey, Gizmo, I got a question. When will you do a review of the Legion 9i and Scar 18? The Legion 9i, I don't know when they're going to send it, but hopefully July or something like that, I think. It's not going to come out in US markets for a long time. So that's kind of the reason. So let's just get a couple of generic B-roll shots. I'm going to tilt the laptop up like normal and get our shot set up here and focus set. Bingo. Woo, it looks so cool. I mean, it looks so cool. The display is absolutely gorgeous on this machine. In general content, I don't think it really gets better than this, if I'm being honest. Like, in terms of brightness, detail, and enjoying the gaming experience on a laptop display, just because it's such a vibrant, colorful, bright, contrasty display. So, yeah, it looks really, really cool. Looks really, really sick, in my opinion. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to try to get a shot of the logo as it goes by. right, let's go back one more time. Wow. Beautiful. All right, and let's try to get a shot of the keyboard deck as it goes by as well. Probably something like that ought to do the trick. My Lazy Susan motor is stuttering a little bit. I need to get a better Lazy Susan. So I gotta let it go all the way around probably. Gizmo Slip Tech. Ah, that shot was sick. I could see. I'm probably definitely going to use that shot in the intro for this review. Oh, that's beautiful. Reflection off the glass trackpad, the RGB lighting, everything looking good. All right, let's do a little top-down, turn around, danceroo. And look at that visuals. Look at those visuals. They look really sick. Whew. I'm really liking my new streaming setup, aside from all the problems I had today, getting the streaming to go consistently. But wow, that is a beautiful shot. It's just so much vibrant color and color coordination on RGBFX. It's the most beautiful laptop, I think, that has ever been made in terms of an RGB cool looking laptop. Super cool. And there are better anime matrix animations. I just can't seem to get the right settings to go right now in the Armory Crate software. So I got to fiddle with it some more and I'll be able to get it going. All right, so let it go around one more half turn and then we'll get on to the next part of the review. I think we got a lot of gorgeous B-roll, so we're ready to make some progress. All right, cool. And let me just move this back into here and turn this and plug that in and lift this up and switch the camera angle to, I don't know, this one. Hello. And now let me check chat because I didn't want to get into the fancy B-roll shots, you know, when I'm I have to turn the lights all back on again as well. All right. Cool. Super cool. Huh. All right. All right, so going back, chat, a decent ways here to try to answer question. Bumblebee says, can we use 100-watt power delivery for basic tasks, not putting much burden on the GPU, Asus Strix G16? I believe so. Yeah, you should be able to. For web browsing, and if you need to do something more taxing, it'll pull on the battery juice to do that task, drain the battery, like to render a video, and then it can start charging again after that. So you can do demanding tasks on power delivery, but only if you have some battery remaining. Courage Knows says, we love this laptop, really wouldn't go for the Titan 18HX anymore. Zach Sparrow says, is the fan loud on idle or when you do anything under load? Not really, it's pretty dang quiet for me in my experience. But it depends on what fan mode you're doing and how much effort you're putting onto it. All right, I gotta keep going. Sorry, Danny, I gotta just keep moving because this is gonna be a really long live stream already. It's probably well over 2 hours, and we're not even to any of the performance testing yet. Display test nits color gamut. Here we go. So this is a very big one because this has one of the top displays that money can buy in a laptop, pretty much period. So I did do a bunch of different display testing on this as well, and you have to, because each mode is quite a bit different actually. All right, so within Armory Crate, in the devices, see this? There is this button. There is multi-zone strong, one zone, multi-zone balance. And these are on SDR mode, which means not high dynamic range. So that's important to keep in mind. Now, the other thing is, if you go into your display settings, you can flip on HDR, which is this button right here. Shaboom. You click that, and then it'll switch in here to the HDR mode. And there's two modes in here. There's true color mode and vivid mode. So I had to do 5 different display tests because the color gamut and the display brightness is different in each one. So we're going to do, starting with SDR mode, one zone. This is the color gamut. And keep in mind with my Spider 5 Elite, we're looking at about a 7 to 8% reduction in actual value. You got to add 7 or 8% to the color gamut to get it to be accurate. So, all right. So 87% of the P3 means we're getting about 94, 95% of the P3 color gamut, which is a little bit low, but it's still very good. Brightness in SDR mode, 354 nits in center bright. Because SDR one zone, it basically makes all of the dimming zones equal. You don't get the super peaky brights. And the contrast is also a lot reduced, 1100 to 1. SDR multi-zone strong, 87% of the P3, so same color gamut. But the brightness is much higher, 606 nits with 606,000 to 1 contrast ratio. So this is going to be fantastic for gaming and movies. And I would say that the one zone, this is going to be fantastic for like doing Excel, office tasks, browsing the web. All right, so multi-zone strong, 607 nits approximately. And multi-zone balance, 87% on the P3, and 340 nits for the nits brightness. But you get the high contrast, so that's nice. All right, then if we jump over to HDR vivid color, we get that 87% P3 with 612 nits brightness in HDR, with 612,000 to 1 color contrast. Sorry, over 600,000 to 1 contrast. HDR true color chops down the color gamut to make it look more tame. And this is a Windows HDR thing here and potentially an issue with my Spider 5 Elite tool. But it says it's only 68% P3 color gamut, and it does look significantly reduced on the color gamut. So visually speaking, I can tell this looks like an older display color gamut. It's not as good. Brightness and contrast in HDR true color, 612 nits brightness with 600,000 to 1 contrast ratio. So yeah, so in terms of the display brightness modes that I would use, I would keep it in SDR mode because HDR in Windows appears to be bugged still. And if I were to give you an example clip, all right. So this is a clip we use sometimes to showcase some of the visuals here. And we're at max brightness right now, and we're in multi-zone balance. We'll do multi-zone strong for this, this is the kind of thing I would recommend. Multi-zone strong is the way I would probably use this display most of the time. That or one zone, multi-zone one zone, SDR. Or sorry, not multi-zone, it's one zone. And that looks really good for doing office or video editing. For gaming and movies, the multi-zone strong is probably the way I would go though, SDR. And it looks just gorgeous. Like, this is some of the best looking display I've ever used. Definitely comparable to OLED, though I think OLED is just visually a little bit better still. But this is still just excellent. Excellent. So that's some examples, some example clips. Let's talk DiskMark, UFO test. UFO test is next, I guess, because we want to make sure we do that. UFO ghost testing. All right, you probably will not be able to see this very well, but I'm trying the best I can do. Now, visually, when I see the top line, it looks smooth. See the middle line, it looks smooth. Bottom line, it looks smooth. It looks very, very good. This test basically tests different hertz refresh rates, and displays that have ghosting will have a trailing image of the alien at the different refresh rates, basically. But this one, it looks solid on all three lines, and I don't think we're going to see any ghosting on this display. All right, CrystalDiskMark. This is a Gen 4 2 terabyte SSD, about 7,000 read, 6,000 write, so 6,800, 6,000, very, very good. Very high speed. Obviously, Gen 5 SSDs are pushing more like 13, 14,000. They'll be faster. So that's up to you if you think it's worth spending the extra money to buy. Let's go to our TimeSpy score. This is TimeSpy manual mode with plus 50, plus 100, small overclock. 22,280, 16,377 for our CPU score. We'll actually be running TimeSpy though. I also ran Steel Nomad. I'm going to start using Steel Nomad, I think, as the key benchmarking utility soon-ish, potentially. I'm still messing around with it to see if I like it more than TimeSpy. And then I should have Cinebench scores. Oh, here's Port Royale, 14,100 with 65 FPS. All right. And here is Cinebench R24. This is a 10-minute score for the single and multi. 2128 with 133 for the single core. So some silicon lottery here, but expect a little bit less performance compared to the Neo 16 that's got over 22,000, for example. In Cinebench R23, this was, I believe, a 10-minute run. 34,511 and 2116. So pretty noticeably lower than the Neo 16 that had 38,000 or 39,000, I think, here for a 10-minute score. And we'll also be running, Cinebench. We're taking a look at some of the CPU performance here in a moment. I think that, oh, and our 8 to 64 RAM speed test. So here's our RAM speed. 85,600 for read, 77,000 write, copy 78. Latency 106 is decent. These are all pretty much average RAM speeds for a DDR5 5600. Nothing special to write home about. You can definitely get faster RAM. If you buy like Kingston Fury Impact or other new ones that have come out since then, should give you faster performance than the stock RAM for sure. But RAM speed does not really affect gaming performance much, except for very, very memory sensitive CPU bound type scenarios. All right. Cool beans. Speaker test is next? Well, laptop software control, I think, is the next part. Moby says, nice to see your streaming gizmo. All the best, thanks. There are different color profiles on Armory Crate for sRGB and P3. Please show us that. Niebuhr says those cache RAM latencies are a disaster. Interesting. I can show those to you again. I haven't done enough RAM speed testing to be like, oh, this L1 cache of 1.7 nanoseconds is terrible. It's going to ruin your gameplay or something. I don't know. I need to do more testing. But Niebuhr, I'm not sure which number you're specifically talking about, but for sure this RAM is not as fast as the top RAM. You can get faster RAM out there, especially considering that the RAM speed out of the box can go to 6400. I wish Asus had done that. For sure, I should have at least done 6400 mega transfer RAM speed, in my opinion. Okay. Next, laptop control software evaluation. Let's go. All right, so in my opinion, Armory Crate is a bit of a disaster. Not disaster necessarily. It's not that bad. It's, Armory Crate usually updates well, generally functions fine. A police car, I think, is going by out there. Kind of making some loud noise. I don't know if you can hear that. So Armory Crate, though, had a downgrade this year. And I talked about this already, but basically, you used to be able to control just about everything from this one page. And they've decided to move everything. So normally, you'd be able to do one click and change your GPU mode, one click and change your Hertz refresh rate, one click and turn off a number of settings. Now you have to go one click, two click, three click, four click, five click. That's not good. That's bad. That's a degrade, and UI should be simplified, and you want as many settings as possible to be 1 to 2 clicks away. And this is a degradation of like all of these buttons could have been put on here somewhere. I don't get it. That's just dumb that they did that. Anyway, okay. There is a My Asus button added right here. So you can click this and it'll open My Asus. So this is the secondary application that you need to be aware of. Inside of device settings, you can enable battery care mode to reduce the total charge on your battery, which will make your battery life last longer in terms of longevity. Like 5 years from now, your battery health will be better. So I would recommend turning this on. I just wish that you could put it down to 70 or 50%, maybe 60% as well if you really wanted to. If you're always going to keep it plugged in, I'd rather just keep it at 60% probably. You can also do system update. You can update the BIOS through here. So those are the key update. Key updates sometimes go through here. And Asus needs to unify these two applications. There's absolutely no reason why Armory Crate needs to exist if My Asus exists. Just put it all in one. So those are my criticisms. Put everything in one. Give us a one central dashboard. Is better that way, better for the users. And make the updates also all go through one area. As it is, there's also an update area inside of Armory Crate. So you'll want to update through here. And then there's also obviously going to be Windows updates to consider as well. You'll want to make sure that you're up to date. Looks like there is a Windows update that needs to be done, but shouldn't affect performance in theory. I'm not going to do that right now. Sometimes they do affect performance though, so something to keep in mind. You do get a lot of your updates through Windows Update if you haven't updated through Armory Crate. It can be a little confusing. We're like, are you going to get your BIOS update through My Asus or the Windows Update? Oh, where's it going to come through? So when I get these, I try to do updates on all three of those areas. All right, so for lighting controls, there's going to be Aura Sync now. And underneath your specific device, there's also a lighting section. So again, unify. Why is there two lighting sections to control your laptop? That's silly, okay? Asus, what are you doing, okay? So this section under GPU performance, you can change your mode from dedicated GPU to standard, which will allow you to use Advanced Optimus to jump between the NVIDIA GPU and the iGPU. And then Eco mode, I think, is important because this will let you go to your iGPU only to make sure the NVIDIA GPU does not wake up when you're trying to maximize your battery life. So that's another nice mode to have. Now, inside of the Anime Vision section is where you can customize what shows up on the rear of the display. Danny, it looks like, okay, I don't know why you got rejected. I didn't, message retracted? I don't know. I didn't remove those. I guess maybe you did? I don't know. Anyway, sorry if you are asking questions. I didn't do anything to your messages. Okay. Sorry, just trying to focus here on the review. Okay, so inside of the Anime Vision, you can customize this. It's a bit confusing on how to apply an effect, but you got a content library. There's a default one. For those who dare, I click trend, I click apply, and it doesn't apply. Turn off that, I guess, maybe. Now it will apply, maybe, apply. Will it work? Did it change? It's not on. I don't know. I think, okay, so click on the icon in the top left corner or drop in content from your content library. So I guess we need, there's nothing, there was a default one in here, but it's gone now, I think. So I think that's the problem. So I need to download a new thing to animate. Okay, anyway, so they need to make this a little bit better, a little more intuitive. That or I'm just dumb, that's possible too in this scenario. I just need to spend more time with it. Okay. So that's the software. It's not perfect. It generally works well to control the software. That's the good thing. I want to mention ghelper, because ghelper is a utility you can use to replace Armory Crate and give you additional settings. I don't know if it's fine-tuned yet for the SCAR 18 2025 version, but there is some undervolting and overclocking settings that are not included in Armory Crate. But if you want to use ghelper, you have to remove Armory Crate. So that's, I just want to mention that as a potential alternative to Armory Crate if you want a more simplified UI. All right. So next up, speaker test. Here we go. Shoo. 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 All right. This camera is kind of hard to reach. Okay, so first up we have Peter Spacey Roar. And I also want to mention, this is part of the software control. I need to go in here and pull up Dolby Access. Dolby Access lets you modify your EQ. Dynamic usually is the loudest setting, so I'm just going to put it to that. Though I will play for a moment and change between a couple of them just to verify. So, I mean, that gives you an idea of some of the audio changes you can get with Dolby Access. It's not going to change that much, but you might be able to get a little more bass or a little better clarity on certain things. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the dB meter out, and let's see how loud the speakers get. And I'll hold the mic. I'm going to hold the mic right next to the dB meter so you can hear it a little better. So we're going to do all these tests in dynamic mode, which I think is the loudest. DDR6 RAM support? No, there is no DDR6 RAM support. All right, here we go. Let's do a base dB meter first. So right now it's 50. To add some sensitivity to the room, I'm going to turn the fans on my air conditioner down a little bit. Okay, so now that my fans on the air conditioner on low, let's see how loud it is in here. So the base dB is right around 48 in the room. All right, here's Peter Spacey Roar. Volume is at 100% and Dolby Atmos is imbalanced. The bass is pretty mediocre. The clarity on the mids and highs, not that great either. Let's move to Faded Aeon. I mean, you definitely get some audio that's decent-ish. It's just not super great, and especially for an expensive gaming laptop, you would hope for better speakers. Faded Aeon Half-Life focuses on mids and highs. All right, I mean, that one sounded, I think, a bit better than Peter Spacey Roar. La La La, Love You Like by Deuce Williams. All right, so yeah, let's talk. All right. Faded Aeon Half-Life and La La Love You Like, those sounded better than Peter Spacey Roar. Peter Spacey Roar is a very like bass, rock, heavy music track, and it does not sound amazing on this laptop. I would say overall, these speakers are probably around like a 8.6, 8.5. It's not different really from last gen. It sounds very similar to last generation in terms of clarity and quality. And I think this is a big area of weakness overall for gaming laptops in general. Very few gaming laptops have great speakers, and we need to work on that. So that's my thoughts on the speakers. Definitely could get a lot better. All right, so fan noise testing with decibel meter is next. Let's see how loud these fans are. Vesper says, doesn't the laptop have peak brightness of 1200 nits in HDR? That's what it's rated for when you have a tiny little patch like being bright. But when I do my Spider 5 Elite test, half of the screen is white, half of the screen is black. So it's not going to reach 1200 nits when it's, only if it's like, a patch, like an inch or two across or something, it'll go to that. So like in a movie, when you're looking at the sun or like the moon or something like that at night, that's when you get the full brightness of the display coming out, or the peak brightness. Or in video games, where it's a mix of light and dark, and mostly dark but a little bit of light. Okay, so here we go. We got 3D Mark. See, like right now, the display does not look good to me in the current mode. Like this white part is really bright, and then this part is dark to my eyes. It's due to the way the multi-zone dimming is done right now. So we're in multi-zone strong. If I go to instead, well, it's also because we're on lower brightness. If I go to max brightness, it'll help. But so this is multi-zone balanced, multi-zone strong, and one zone. So one zone is where the dark objects on the display peak properly, in my opinion. If you go to multi-zone balanced, like the dark objects are too dark. Multi-zone strong is a bit better, but one zone is like proper for doing office work, in my opinion. Especially if you have like night mode or dark mode on some of the applications. It'll look really weird if you don't have one zone on. All right, so we're gonna do a custom run, graphics test, enable looping, run custom. All right. So, Armory Crate is currently in turbo mode. Let's go to silent mode, and we'll go more and more powerful as we go. All right, and I'm gonna put the mic. It's gonna be a lower audio quality, unless I pull out my second mic, which I'm totally gonna do, because that's why I bought this mic system that has two mics. All right. Huzzah! All right, so this should also work. I'm going to leave this kind of right here next to the decibel meter. All right, so we're in silent mode. I wish I could. There. Huzzah. Okay. Now I'm going to zoom in here, and we'll take a look at our performance levels in TimeSpy. So this is in silent mode. We're getting 48 FPS with 50 watts going through the GPU. We'll need to open HW info to get our CPU information. So CPU right now is pulling about 20 watts. So a total of 70 watts right now. Only 700 to the GPU boost clock. That is brutally low. But still, FPS is cranking. And I'm pretty sure I cannot hear the laptop fans at all right now. Like not even a little bit. Yeah, we're still at baseline dB. Let's go to performance mode. So performance mode is going to get us most of the way up in terms of getting us closer to that full performance mark. It's probably going to have reduced CPU. So our CPU is only doing 32 watts. Our GPU is doing 158 right now. We're definitely getting some fan noise now. Well, this heats up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and see Danny's question. Thoughts on the Blade 16 5090 Firestrike score? So TimeSpy score 19,278 for a Blade 16 5090. That's really low. because a 25,000 is more for a 5090. So it's about 20% reduction in performance, Danny. Okay, 33 watts to the CPU, 158 to the GPU, 79 degrees, 76. So temperatures are still within range. Fan noise is slowly kicking up. I can hear it getting a little bit louder and a little bit louder and a little bit louder. We're probably getting closer to the peak fan noise now. All right, let's go ahead and examine our dB levels. .51 decibels in performance mode. We'll jump to turbo mode. Well, 190 watts, 185 watts, 180 watts, 176 watts. Wow, we did 100. Oh, you couldn't see that. We went all the way to 190 watts for a little bit there. It's crazy. Okay, so 170, 175. Fan noise is ramping up significantly. Interesting, our CPU package power is pretty low at only 24. Okay, now it's 40, now it's 60, that's better. Temperatures are staying pretty good, but we're entering the 80s, low 80s, high 70s. Also, let me raise the back. I always raise the rear of the laptop when I start into these tests right now. So raise up the back a little bit. All right, so our temps, raising up the back, maybe a little bit lower, but high 70s basically for turbo mode, and our fan noise is .54 decibels for our fan noise. It's pretty reasonable for a turbo, but it's not great. I think it's above average though. Usually 56 to 60 for turbo mode is probably more normal. So manual mode is everything maxed out, all the sliders except for the overclock. We're at stock. We're at stock overclock for the GPU. Normally it is 50/100 as the stock, but I'm just going to leave it at 0 for now. So manual fan right now is set to 100% fan speed. .175 watts, 174, 173, 45 to the CPU. Combined power load right now is about 225. And with manual fans going max, we are getting a little bit lower temperatures. We're getting mid 70s now. So slight improvement to the temps. And our max decibels is .57 decibels at maximum fan speed. Cool. Now, I did show this already, but I'll show it again one more time. Here's the time spy score. For an RTX 5080, 22,280, 16,377 for the CPU. It is good. It is very good, especially for a 5080. Almost 20, over 22,000 is good. I've seen 5080s get 21,000, so this is certainly above average. All right, it's time to move into our game testing. Oh, CPU testing. We got to do Cinebench R24 at least a little bit and see what our max wattages and temperatures are. So we're in manual fan mode maxed out right now. Got my boba here. Chicon says those temperatures seem super bad. I don't think the temperatures seem bad. I mean, it was mid 70s for max fan mode. Seemed pretty reasonable. We'll see. We'll see what we get. I mean, that's pretty normal for air. I don't know. Are you used to looking at those water cooler Neo 16 temperatures? I don't know. All right, so. Let's go to Cinebench now. Let's get our core effective clocks out. And there you can see the core effective clocks and our package power. And let's start. Multi-core render. We'll reset. So right out the gate, we're maxing out at 152 watts, 139 watts, 136, 145, 142. We're averaging 141 watts during the initial phase, which is, yeah, it's pretty good. But it's not like, Neo 16 good in terms of water cooled, but that's a water cooled laptop. This is on air. Our effective clocks for the E cores are around 4.2 gigahertz. Our P cores are around 4.5, 4.6. And we have not thermal throttled on any of the cores. We're doing 70 on the lowest and 84 on the highest. So it definitely seems like if Asus wanted to, you should be able to go higher on the power pole. Now, the weird part is I did set it to go to 175 watts to the CPU in manual mode, and it's not doing that. The highest we've seen now is 158. Yeah, so you can see 158 is the highest we've seen. I'll zoom in a little more on the HW info so you can see that a little bit better, hopefully. But averaging 147 watts and averaging 82 watts, 82 degrees on the CPU, but our current temperature is 84 for the highest core. And as far as liquid metal pump out, I'm seeing pretty even CPU temperatures across all the different cores. So I don't think we have, at least on the CPU, that issue. So if we had an uneven application of liquid metal, maybe you'd see higher temps on 1 or 2 of the cores, or 3 or 4 of the cores, and we're not really seeing that so much. I definitely think it's a little sad that we're not seeing the full 175 watts that we set in Armory Crate, but okay, so we're almost done now with our Cinebench R24 render. I think that gives us a good idea of consistent CPU performance. The score here is going to be a little bit lower than it theoretically could be. So 2055 is our score. It's obviously a very good score, but with a higher throughput to that Intel 275HX, we could get up to 22,000 or so. So about 150 points left on the table per se in terms of performance, but at least we're not thermal throttling at all. I just kind of wish that we had been able to hit, on the CPU, we have it set to 175 watts, and we're not hitting that, so that's, I don't know if it's bugged, but it's certainly something is going on there beyond the manual fan mode, because the manual fan mode is not controlling the CPU TDP properly. I suppose we could try dropping it down to 90 and just seeing, do we actually get the requested 90 watts or not? I don't know, maybe the BIOS is like, we can't go that high, can't go above 155 or something. And they need to fix their BIOS to let it go higher. So, okay, so it looks like we're actually pulling the correct capped wattage, doing right around 90 watts right now. So we are controlling the wattage through Armory Crate, but just not letting it go above the 145 mark, or 145 is the average at least. See, it's not going to 175. So I would say, I am going to personally report this to Asus as a bug, so hopefully they can fix their software so their CPU can go to the full performance. It's not going to be that big of a difference, but maybe 5 or 10% performance bump. But that would explain why our Cinebench score is a little bit lower than the competition that's doing 2200. All right, so we'll go ahead and end this, and let's move into our game testing. So first up, we have Baldur's Gate 3. Seth Trick says, what is the temperature in the room? Because it affects the tests and not weekly. Yes, it does. I agree. And it's about, we are in a room 23 degrees Celsius or about 74 degrees Fahrenheit, air-conditioned environment. And I usually always set my room environment the same pretty much every time. Andrea says, don't know why from last updates the power limited to 150 watts. Also my Alienware M18R1 doesn't reach any more 200 watt in benchmark. Sad because hottest core hits 77 degrees. Interesting. Should I get the Blade 16 or 18? I would buy the Blade 18 if it was between the two and you could afford it. Definitely. No question in my mind there. Blade 18 has better features, better speakers, better display, better performance, better multimedia. Unless you really need a portable system. All right, so let's check our video settings. QHD Plus, turn off VSync. Upscaling, DLSS. Set to quality. Ultra graphics preset. All right, and we are ready to go. Maro says, I think in 5090 laptops for time spy maybe 22.9. Vesper says, thanks. How large of an area the screen can hit 1200 nits before it starts to drop? I don't know. I'm guessing like 1 or 2 inches squared, something like that. I'm going to reload this because I moved the character. There's probably some kind of technical rating system that they must hit to do the nits brightness measurement. Okay, so here we are. Go ahead and start measuring in 3, 2, 1. Some nice 1% low performance. Oh yeah. I also want to start incorporating NVIDIA Frame View. All right. So let me pop open Frame View too so we can see that. So Frame View will be up on the left. I got to reposition this. It's so small. I'm going to make it bigger. There we go. All right, so you can see right now, we got 245 FPS, 140 for our 1% low. It's pretty good. Obviously, it's great performance in Baldur's Gate 3 on ultra settings. It's going to be a super enjoyable gameplay experience. Counter-Strike 2, here we go. Andrea Cravat says, sorry, how to get Frame View? Is it a download? Yes, just Google Frame View, and it'll be a quick download. It's actually a very small file. I think it basically just, it's probably included in the NVIDIA drivers now, and you just, it just flips on. So Frame View will actually let us see some FPS numbers, I think, in Counter-Strike for the first time, which is great. Yay. And let's make sure our settings are correct. All right, full screen. Advanced. See, I wish I could make Frame View, this little thing up here, I wish I could make it bigger. And I wish I could make it, so very high default. I wish I could make it have a, I don't know, relocate it so I could put it next to Afterburner better. That would really help. All right, I'm gonna turn on CL Show FPS. I don't think, yeah, you're not gonna be able to see. Oh, it's funny. You're not gonna be able to see the Show FPS with Frame View, but I suppose Frame View is a little better to show anyway. All right. And for now, I guess I can make this a little bigger so we can see. All right, so we're on very high preset, 260 FPS, 230, 1% low around 125. Another downside with the 1% lows on this is that it basically takes, I think, the average from like the last, I don't know, few seconds, like probably 2 or 3 seconds, and it averages your 1% lows based on that. So your 1% low performance, it's not going to feel quite as consistent. Like in terms of like, if I can set the benchmark to start at the beginning of the benchmark, and then you see the average of the 1% lows through the whole benchmark, but at least with this mode where it shows you the revolving 1% lows, it'll show you when we reach the worst dip areas a little bit more clearly. So the FPS is really dipping from like 150 to like all the way up to 300, then back down to 150. And this is on very high preset. So obviously, if you were to set this to be, I adjusted I should have muted the volume before we did the benchmark. I feel like I need to retest it because I adjusted the volume, and I saw it did a little 1% low stutter when I adjusted the volume. So. $256 average, 111.9, so 112 for a 1% low. But I'm going to rerun it because I adjusted the volume and it caused a 1% low stutter. I feel silly about that, but it is what it is. Quality of benchmarks over, I guess, time, in my experience. Danny says, Blade 18 is amazing, but I don't game at 4K, only 1600 or 1440. Isn't that going to make quality worse because it's not native? Well, you just have to use more upscaling. That's basically, you go to 4K resolution, and then you, instead of using quality upscaling at QHD, you'd probably just use balanced or performance upscaling at 4K to basically be running the same native render resolution. I don't know the exact setting you'd have to do to match it exactly, but it'd be pretty close. So that's basically what you do if you run a 4K display right now. The main thing about 4K displays is that a lot of the 4K displays are only 120 hertz, which makes them noticeably worse for action gaming. Because 240 versus 120 is a big difference. And so the Blade 18 is a 240 hertz 4K. And it can go 440 hertz full HD if you want. So that's kind of like the best of both worlds in terms of esports and action gaming. And single player gaming, single player gaming loves 4K because you get more detail and you don't have to hit as high FPS for a lot of single player games. So as long as you're getting smooth frame rates, you can see extra detail on 4K potentially. If you can use less upscaling, like 4K at quality, that's going to be noticeably crisper when you're looking at the fine details. Ultimately, it's not that big a difference, because then at QHD, you could probably just drop it to DLAA at QHD, and it would still look the same as 4K quality DLSS. I don't know. All right, so let's take a look at the performance numbers. Yeah, our 1% lows were better this time. And let me just zoom in so you can see this. I can probably make it that big part. Yeah, there we go. So your average is 259, 1% low is 134.7. So yeah, 1% low performance was affected by me tapping the volume meter, so I'm glad I retested. All right, and we're going to run this on low as well, so let's go pop into the settings. Low preset, and this is going to use all those settings, and FSR is going to be unbalanced. So you say, Blender test please. What would you like to see in a Blender test? So we're doing 450, 150 for a 1% low. So in the 400, 500 range, with 1% low being at like 150. So Yasin, I'm open to adding Blender to my benchmarking suite. I know it's a common animation tool. I have done a little bit of just learning in Blender before, but overall, I can't do it right now just because I'm in the middle of the live stream. I have to download a bunch of stuff, and I always try to pre-test everything to make sure hopefully it'll go smoothly. Today's live stream did not go very smoothly at the beginning because of all the problems getting everything going, but it'll hopefully be better. Hopefully it's been better on this whole live streaming segment. All right, so, I mean, we're reaching peak average above 600 with, I don't think I've seen it dip below 400 much just high 300s maybe, around 400 on the lows for our average. Let's see what we got for our 1% lows. Do. There we go. 460.6, 160.5 for our 1% lows. And these are definitely, again, consistently lower than what we were seeing on the 9955 HX3D for sure. All right. There's Counter-Strike. Cyberpunk is next. All right. All right, Danny says, would you say the contrast is close to OLED? Yeah, it feels a lot like OLED. In terms of like actual real world day-to-day use, it's a lot of similarities to OLED. Danny says, if I have a Razer cooling pad with 175 watt TGP 16, would I be cleaning scores closer to the other 5090 laptops in time spy? Yeah, you would, Danny. It would be very similar. Don't get me wrong, the Blade 16 isn't going to be a good laptop. But I probably wouldn't want to use it because I know the wrist rest is going to get super hot when you're gaming, probably. And that's just, that's a deal breaker for me when I have a laptop, you know? Some people don't care. They'll be fine with getting a thin laptop. You know, or maybe they don't care because they're gonna dock it when they game mainly, or you know, different reasons why they might not care. Ray tracing ultra, neural network, DLSS on quality, ray reconstruction, frame generation enabled. Those are our settings, and now we need to restart the game. Yeah, I mean, the other issue with the Blade 16 is it's gonna have a lot, I guess, a lot better CPU for on the go, but a lot less performance on that CPU in general, because those Ryzen chips are made mainly for mobile applications, where the Blade 18, you got basically a desktop class chip in that chassis with higher CPU TDP cooling as well. So it can probably do almost double the watts probably of the Blade 16. I don't know exactly how much, but it's a lot more wattage because there's a lot more cores and threads as well. So full screen, just double check all our settings. Neural network, quality, frame generation on 2x, ray reconstruction on, run, benchmark, go. Cool. John says, wondering if you notice how hot the 275HX can get. Well, gaming on my Legion Pro 7i 5080, it gets up to 100 degrees Celsius. So it should be rated up to 105 degrees Celsius for safe, like it's safe in theory. You know what I mean? I need to move this closer. Yes, okay. Good. I want to make this a little bigger. Like that. Uh-huh. There we go. All right. I'm not saying you should run it at 105 degrees Celsius necessarily, but in theory, Intel says it's safe. Now, 1% lows here are bugged. Look at it says 53 on Afterburner, but FrameView is saying 90, 105. So this is the correct 1% low up here in the top left. I just wanted to point that out. Vesper says, what do you think of the build quality? On the Scar series, Scar 16, Scar 18, I think the build quality is really great. It is plastic, which has its pros and cons. 124 point, can't tell what that is. I think it's 75 or something like that. Yeah, 75. So 125 FPS basically. Great FPS average. It's going to be solid gaming performance. Let's move on to Elder Scrolls Oblivion. John says, yeah, I got you, which is fine. I know it'll run hot. It's a monstrous chip that performs excellent. Just seems to run hotter than my 13900HX from a couple years ago. So with the Legion, I don't know if you're running your Legion Pro 7i in custom mode with the wattage like sliders slid all the way over. In custom mode with the wattage slider slid all the way over, the CPU may be trying to pull too high of a CPU wattage. Do you know what I mean? Like it may not need to pull 100 watts, but because it'll give you the same FPS if it was only pulling 75. But because you slid a slider over, maybe it's pulling the extra wattage. I don't know. Maybe it helps with 1% lows. It's hard to say necessarily, but unless you're noticing the performance difference, I'd say it's better to keep it more like 80, 90 watts instead of letting it run super high on the wattage pull. Though it's up to you. I mean, if it's a CPU-bound game, then maybe it's worth it. But if it's a CPU-bound game, then the GPU should not be engaged nearly as much, which should make the CPU not get too hot. Because the issue comes, like the CPU usually won't hit 100 degrees Celsius on a gaming laptop unless the GPU has like a lot of wattage, like 150 watts, and the CPU is also pulling, 80 to 120 watts, somewhere in that range, depends on the game and the situation, but basically, only when there's a really heavy dual load will you see the CPU temps reaching peak. So I don't know what game you're seeing those temps with, John, but I would say you could try seeing what the temps are like when you're in just turbo mode if you were testing in custom mode. Okay, so John says, I was in turbo mode. Actually, if I went to custom mode and chose the extreme profile, the temps dropped to 7680, which is odd to me. I'm going to do more testing tonight. So yeah, it's probably like their algorithm that decides the CPU-GPU power split. And the only way to really monitor that power split between the CPU-GPU is using an overlay like Afterburner, and then monitoring being like, okay, in turbo mode, the CPU is running way too high. It doesn't need to be that high. So custom mode, you can, I don't know, set it differently, But yeah, I haven't done my detailed benchmarking on the Legion Pro 7i yet, because I'm just getting all the games downloaded and everything. But in my experience, the Legion software can be a little funky with how the power limits are applied in turbo versus custom. Tyrone says, hey, what's up? How you liking the laptop? The Scar 18, it's awesome. It is such a good laptop for a bunch of different reasons. There's definitely a lot of pros and cons to it. Like it's not the pure performance machine of, say, like the Neo 16 or maybe the Titan 18HX. Asus doesn't let the power limits go to their full limits, for example. So, but in terms of design, quality, usability, it's a fine machine. It seems like a great trade-off, especially the 5080 version of the machine seems like a great trade-off of premium features with quality experience. All right, so here we are, going to the benchmark, save. Gonna turn our overlay back on. Wow, 1,000 FPS on average. Okay. All right, so let's make sure our settings are correct. So we're gonna go to Ultra Preset, Ray Tracing on, Ultra, DLSS on, Quality. All right, I believe, let me double check what I tested recently. Oblivion. DLSS on quality. Yes. Okay. Cool. Why are we only getting 70 FPS? That is not right. Maybe this should be, oh, frame generation is not on. Okay. Okay, there we go. That's the right amount of FPS, or close enough. I was like, this is not the correct setting. Something is off. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do our little test run now. Everything's looking good. Oh, I got to go to third-person mode, which is how I do this test. I kind of want to get a better, longer test for Oblivion somehow. It looks like our 1% lows are bugged right now in this, with this laptop, because it's listing 1% lows in frame view as 1010, and Afterburner is only 48, so we're getting about half our 1% lows. Real 1% lows are basically double this number. So 128.96 for our 1% lows. So really, really good performance. And you're going to have a buttery smooth Oblivion experience in this game. Or on this laptop. Let's go to God of War next. Danny says, I think the Blade 16 5090 with a cooling pad will get you 5 or 6 years because you're going full 5090 performance. I think a 5090, yeah, will probably last 5, 6 years. But you know, by year 4, year 3, 4, I mean, maybe even as soon as next year, we might, you know, see some crazy title that's just super poorly optimized, and it doesn't even play that well at ultra all maxed out settings, you know. But as long as you're using DLSS, you know, upscaling to quality and ultra settings, I think it'll probably play games at 3, 4 years out, no problem. And then at year 5 and 6, you're probably just looking at turning things to more medium settings when you can't do absolute max settings. So DLSS set to quality, QHD+. Let's go ahead and do our benchmark. Cough GTA 6, maybe. I mean, maybe. We'll have to see. That's a really hard one to predict, but I imagine a 5090 is going to tear through a GTA 6 at well above 60 FPS on ultra settings, I would think. But I don't know, we'll see. I think that's definitely a game where the X3D CPU is likely to give you some nice gains, probably. So God of War benchmark, doing 120 FPS, 1% low is 90. That's really great performance. No issues here. We're getting high GPU TDP. I need to open Afterburn or HW info. Where's HW info? Because we're missing our CPU. Missing our CPU package power. There we go. So CPU package power is 80 right now. So this is one of the highest cross loads we've seen, 170 and 70. So 245, 250 watts going through the system, no problem. Very nice. Hogwarts Legacy is next. John Linkter says, 5080 and 5090 should easily last 5 to 6 years, in my opinion, especially at 1600p. I've been using my 5080 with 5.2K LG OLED and still getting 100 plus FPS. So I think that probably one of the biggest limiters to how long these laptops will last is going to be, you know, how much VRAM does a laptop have? And if it has more than 12 right now, I think it'll last at least 3 years without having to turn textures down much, if at all. And then probably by year 3, 4, 5, we're probably looking at having to turn textures down. And then if you have a 16 gig, you're probably looking at, you know, year 5 or 6 where you start to have to turn textures down. Something like that. It's really hard to predict, but that's the kind of what I'm thinking right now, at least. And I think that's one of the most important factors. Then, of course, there's always the render resolution and settings you can adjust. Because if you just do, you know, go from quality down to balance, boom, 20 more FPS, now the game's playable. Or you flip on frame generation, and then suddenly, you know, you're getting more than 100 FPS. So it depends on the game and the target FPS you're happy with. But in terms of like, you can load a game, it looks good graphically, it doesn't look graphically terrible, and it's a smooth gameplay experience. I'm thinking a 5090 will probably last 5 to 6 years to be able to play basically every title. And then probably, if you're willing to fiddle with the settings and go way down low to lows, like even right now, a 10-year-old 1080, like a GTX 1080, which, you know, is a laptop GPU from a really long time ago, like 2016, if you had one of those laptops right now, you could still play almost every game on low to medium settings, even right now, because it's basically like an RTX 4060, I think. It gets like 10, 11,000 in time spy. So, I mean, you're still talking like everything is playable from 10 years ago on a 10-year-old GPU, at least in theory. So if it ages like the 1080, then that's what I would anticipate. Like that, you're going to be able to play games up to 10 years out. Just that's when you really got to fiddle with the settings a lot to get it to be very playable. All right, so Hogwarts, here we go. What about CPU? So CPU is a little different, but it's very similar. Like, okay, so we're gonna do our pre-run through and let everything load in, let all the assets load in. You can look at that VRAM utilization at 10 gigs that's just going up and up as we go through here. 1% low stutter right there. Another 1% low stutter, look at the frame time graph. The 275HX CPU just does not handle all the different game assets nearly as well as the X3D. I believe our 1% low is accurate right now at 35, because we get these stutters and it's just bad. It's bad, you know? So, like the game is still playable, it's just gonna be like stutter every now and then, stutter here and there. But generally, like it doesn't do that. In most gameplay environments in Hogwarts, it's just this kind of in the middle of a city. There's so many NPCs that it stutters like this. Okay, so here we go. We are, just like a quick recap, 75% GPU utilization. CPU is at 60 watts, which is not terrible. But I kind of wonder if we were at 80 watts on the CPU, if it would be better. Performance, probably a little bit less GPU bounding, a little better FPS on that in general. But the performance is all right. You know, it's going to be a great gaming experience. Like, this is going to be perfectly fine. Like, you're going to love playing Hogwarts at these settings. It's going to look great and generally play great. Just complex environments. Expect some stutters as you enter and leave. Okay, here we go. So we're starting our benchmark run for 2x frame generation. Hitting around 150 FPS for the test. There we go, actually hitting 150 exactly, 48 for a 1% low. So results not too different from the Strix G18, which makes sense. The same manufacturer, it's gonna be the same power tuning to the CPU, GPU most likely, probably the exact same firmware. So there you go. I feel like if we were able to raise the CPU wattage to 80 or 100 watts in this game, we might see some better 1% lows. Maybe, we'll have to see. But probably the thing that would improve 1% lows in this game is setting probably NPC numbers down lower. It's probably the biggest thing. Because I think that's the asset, that or the random assets around the city that are causing issues. I don't know. All right, Marvel Rivals. Let's go. John Linkletter says, how do you get Afterburner to show CPU package power? I didn't see that option. So right now, I am running CPU package power through HW info. So in here, you download HW info 64, you open it up, and then on CPU package power item, you right click and click RTSS settings, and then you click show value in OSD, show label in OSD, and click OK. And that's how I'm showing my CPU package power now. Because Afterburner is currently not letting you show it with the latest CPUs. It needs an update, basically. HW info and MSI Afterburner can simultaneously display data in Riva Statistics Tuner, which is like a separate application that can pull the data from those two, feeding it, basically. Yeah, no problem, John. Yeah, it's a little bit annoying because I'm on the latest MSI Afterburner build that they have, and it's still not quite updated right for the latest hardware. Danny says, don't you agree that the Razer cooling pad is very light and portable, or is it just me? I have not been able to test it yet. I definitely should request that Razer sends me one of those if they send me the Blade 16 though. Or even the Blade 18 and 14 potentially, I believe, can use it, so. I think I did look at the Razer cooler, and it did look like it was smaller. Let's see. Let me take a look at the design. So, I mean, that does not look that small. And it looks like a really cool design, don't get me wrong. And the fact that there's a USB hub in the back is also super nice. You know, I should probably just do a dedicated review of this cooling pad by itself. And I bet you Razer would send me one really fast because it's cheap for them to send this to me. Compared to like a $4,000 laptop, you know? So, let's see here. Oh, I didn't show it on the screen, let's see. So here you go. Yeah. There. So that's the Razer cooling pad right there. Smart adaptive cooling, and I'd say it's quite large personally, but you have the USB hub in the back, which is cool. And if it communicates to the laptop as well, then that is great. So, how much is it? Let's see. 150 watts. 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 1 probably like $200, $300. Where is the price? Is there really no price? Well, I think their store is broken. I'll try refreshing the page. I don't know. Oh, there it is. 279 NZ. I don't know what that costs. I don't know what is NZ. Is that New Zealand? I don't know why it would be in New Zealand pricing. All right. So let's go to Marvel Rivals now. All right, DLSS on quality. Go to Ultra preset. No frame generation, NVIDIA Reflex on. It's good. We're going to do custom mode. We're going to create a custom mode. Lock the mode here. We're going to add robots. And we are going to change the map. I think I'm going to start benchmarking a different map. We're going to do Yggdrasgard, I think. Because the main thing is I want more consistent FPS testing, and doing the trained style is not as good for being able to examine the FPS graph more consistently. Interesting, it looks like frame view is broken in this game. Maybe. It's not coming up. Normally the frame view should be up here in the top left. It's not there right now. Afterburner works though. All right. All right. Whee! So I like testing this game with AI bots so that we can get as consistent of a visual experience as possible, if that makes sense. So, and by that I mean, I can, like if I do quick match, it's gonna put me on random maps that'll be different, and the characters and what they do will be different. Wow, we are getting a lot of little struggles there. A lot of 1% lows. What is going on right now? I'm trying to see if we're not thermal throttling on anything. Something's going on though. Okay, so our GPU wattage is going up and down a lot. This looks like a performance bug. This looks like a performance bug. I'm going to try rotating our power profile off of manual to turbo mode and see if that helps our performance. No, we're still stuttering at a consistent, regular interval. Weird. Not good. Something's definitely going on here. Probably an NVIDIA driver issue if I were to guess. Let's try. I don't know. Turning off reflex. Nope, that did not help us. Yeah, it's not good. Try Try exiting frame view. Nope, that didn't do anything. We can try going to full screen. And it's still stuttering. Let's go back to manual mode. Okay, I don't know. I'm going to try turning on 4x frame gen, seeing if it helps. Wow, okay, so 4x frame gen did fix the stutter we were encountering. Turning off frame gen, does it come back? Yeah, the stutter came back again. So, frame gen 4x. You know, it's smoother, but it's still stuttering occasionally. So it's not perfectly fixing it. It's just smoothing out some of those 1% low stutters. Weird. John Linkler says, that's G-Sync? Maybe. You know, interesting. I'm not sure the reason, but Marvel Rivals is bugged, so we're going to move to the next game. In theory, I do think it's probably something related to the NVIDIA driver, and it needs to be fixed. John says, Rivals is known for issues with G-Sync. Might be the 5080 is missing ROPS? I don't think so. John, I did switch between full screen and borderless full screen. Otani says, can you test Hogwarts Legacy? We did test Hogwarts Legacy just a moment ago, so just go back about 15 minutes or so in the live stream and we tested Hogwarts Legacy. I don't know how to say your name, but you said you're from Ukraine earlier. You say, it's bad that the Asus SCAR 18 has 220 watts of power consumption on CPU plus GPU, and the Legion 7 has 260 watts. Well, I can tell you that that's just going to heavily depend on the game. So, but if it's in the same game with the same GPU, CPU settings, or like say maxed out GPU, CPU settings, in general, I would say that the Legion series tends to be tuned to throw more wattage at the CPU and GPU at the same time, even though the SCAR 18 could handle the additional wattage, but Asus firmware engineers, I think, just tends to be a little bit more conservative with their overall wattage limits that they let their systems run at. I don't know why, but it definitely hurts the performance just a little bit. I wouldn't say it's normally a 40 watt gap though, but more like a 15 or 20 watt gap. I don't know. I'd have to actually test it and everything. So, Danny says, I think I'm gonna go with the Blade 16 5090. with laptop cooler. Can't go wrong. It'll get 175 watt, 5090, better scores, closer to other laptops. Yeah, and it's more portable. I mean, in terms of, if you're comparing portable versus portable, then yeah, I mean, it's pretty nice, especially compared to the Zephyrus G16. So, Otani says, is the Titan 18 better than the Scar 18? Vespers asks, does the laptop feel hot? So if I zoom out and show you where I'm touching, this over here feels completely stock temperature, literally no warmness at all, like room temperature, room temperature, room temperature, room temperature. Here is warm, right by the keyboard spacebar, room temperature on the trackpad, and then room temperature, slightly warm here, but almost room temperature, and then the keyboard here feels like room temperature. It feels just super, super cool. And that's because of the plastic build. It does not end up overheating at all, So the heat does not it does not congregate on the metal like an aluminum chassis would have the heat basically, the aluminum acts like a little heat sink. Okay, I will also need to get frame view open again. There we go. And scoot this over a little bit and aim this up a little bit. Getting this frame view framed perfectly is hard because it's very, very precise margins around that little window corner up there in the top left. That's why I wish I could make the font bigger in frame view. If anyone knows how to make the font bigger in frame view, please let me know. Because I'd much rather have it be like twice the size and not have to magnify it through the streaming software. John says, I've heard razor blades have issues with vapor chambers sometimes. People claim they burn out after a couple of years. I've never owned one. So I would say the biggest issue with razor blade laptops is historically, over the last 5 years, the biggest issue has been battery bloat. And that comes from the lithium-ion battery. Probably not there either. Fuck. I don't know. Okay, is the audio working now? Testing, testing. Okay, so my receiver ran out of juice, which is really frustrating for me. I'm gonna reset the FPS counter. Okay. So I was talking about the Blade battery issue. I'm not sure what point the audio cut off, but basically a lot of Blades 14 and 16 have battery bloat issues because they keep the battery at a higher temperature than is ideal, and especially if you keep the battery charged at 100% capacity all the time. So you can prevent the problem by reducing your charge capacity down to, I don't know, 60 or 80% on a more regular basis, or replacing your lithium-ion battery every, I don't know, probably 2 years on average, which will also help keep your battery at a high quality percentage. Ooh, that was some big stutters there on the 1% low graph. Another stutter. We're definitely seeing some stuttering happen pretty often. Danny says, is 32 gig 8000 enough for gaming years to come? Yeah, I mean, memory speed even at DDR4 3200 is still probably enough for the vast majority of games. Wow, we're getting a lot of 1% low stutters. I wonder what's going on. This is definitely worse than the Strix G18, which has the identical hardware. John says, have you benchmarked the Blade 16 with Ryzen and 5080 combo? Wondering how that CPU is paired with the 5080. I have not. Razer, I contacted Razer, and they seemed interested to send me the Blade 14 and 16 and 18, but I don't know when they're going to send it. They don't currently have a plan to send it or a timing, but they basically said they're interested in sending it to me, so. NVIDIA, Danny says NVIDIA needs to fix their drivers. I don't know, I think this may be an Asus thing, because, I don't know. This is just really odd performance, quite frankly, because we did not run into this issue on the Strix G18, so it might also be specific to this laptop unit, the little stutters we're seeing. I don't know. It's just odd behavior for sure. The average FPS is very good at 139. It's just we've seen those 1% low stutters be pretty bad. You know, we have 11 FPS right now for the 1% low stutters. But normally 1% lows are like right now 1% lows are 67, 87, and then there was a stutter down to 18, and now 80, and then another stutter right there. Whoa, it's VRAM stutters. We're looking at VRAM stutters. That's what's going on, at least in this game. The VRAM was at 16, then it jumped down to 10, then jumped up to 11, then up to 14 and a half now. So I think it's because it's shifting the textures around, because this benchmark jumps around a lot. And my guess is this can't, I don't know. I don't know. If I were to guess, I would think it's related to the VRAM there because it was jumping around like crazy. I don't think it's maybe in the latest driver issue or something. I don't know. It's really weird. You know, we're not capping the VRAM. We have 16 gigs VRAM, and we're only at 14 and a half right now. So I don't think it should be doing that. It should be performing better, but that's odd behavior. All right, 141 FPS when you round up. Very, very good performance. except for the 1% low stutters in this game, which were odd. And Marvel Rivals, we also had some stutters too. All right, last game test, and then we're doing the final summary of everything. John, the main downside with the Legion is the plastic trackpad. But other than that, I would say build quality, it's really, really good on the Legion. And the keyboard's great, backlighting's great, display, the OLED display's great. And the performance is really good too, so nice balance overall for the Legion. Okay, so it did not change the resolution. Now it changed the resolution. There we go. Ray tracing on Ultra, DLSS. Set to quality, but let's go back and double check. Yeah, it did not save. We'll set to quality again. Now it's saved. Display, VSync off, frame generation on. Okay, there we go. We got all the settings set correctly now. Let's go ahead and load into the game.
This bard's tale begins near White Orchard with my dear friend Geralt of Rivia seeking his love.
Is this the best 18-inch laptop to date? I mean, in terms of looks, I would say the Scar 18 looks the best. That's probably the best visual category winner. Performance-wise, it's solid performance with good temperatures. But in terms of saying it's the best, I would say the Scar 18 excels in several categories. Like ergonomically, it excels. We'll talk about all this here in the summary coming up. But there's a lot of pros and cons when it comes to the Scar series. And I think there's a lot to love, and there's definitely some things that you can dislike too. And so it's not for everybody, but it's still, I think, a great overall laptop. All right, so I'm gonna make sure the settings are right because this FPS is a little bit lower than expected. All the settings look right. Okay, well, what can I do but test it? I'm testing it live. This is how it goes, right? Sometimes the settings just don't, I don't know. They just don't work because right now this should be getting like 112, 115 FPS right now, and it's only doing 100. Our GPU wattage is 155, 160, okay, that's better. 165 is a little better. 140 though, we're seeing just really inconsistent performance, like this laptop needs a firmware update or something from Asus. Maybe the Strix G18 got a firmware update that the Scar 18 did not get? I don't know. All right, here we go. Because in the side-by-side performance benchmarks, I'm seeing noticeably less performance on this Scar 18 than on the Strix G18, which shouldn't be the case. This should be exactly the same silicon and hardware and vapor chamber thermals and power limits should all be the same in theory, but it is possible that one of the laptops, one of the two, like the Strix G18 got a BIOS update that this one did not or something. But I know this one is on the latest BIOS that they've deployed to my Asus because they did not have any updates there at least. So frame time graph. Like in general, the average FPSs are very similar. 121, but the 1% lows are worse. So 39 is quite a bit worse, but it's just like it only affects certain things, you know? Like in certain areas. I have to rewatch the replay, but I'm pretty sure we've had some stutters that I would not have expected it to stutter at all. But either way, the average FPS is excellent. My guess is that this would probably not affect all of the SCAR laptops that are made, given the fact that the Strix G18 didn't have the same performance issues and it's basically identical hardware. So, all right, it's time to do the final summary of everything. Let's get into it. All right. Choo, choo, choo. All right. Let me put this back this way. Yes, all right. Take a moment to breathe, grab a drink. All right. What's up, and welcome to my final summary review of the Asus Strix SCAR 18. This is included in a about 4-hour live stream that unfortunately got divided into like 3 different parts and had some stuttery lag at the beginning, so I had to restart and change my stream settings, unfortunately. But we got everything figured out, and I believe this stream part, it was good. Anyway, if I need to re-show some footage for the final summary review, I'll do that. All right, so in terms of value in comparison against the other laptops on the market, the Strix SCAR 18 is positioned in, I would say, a medium price range, medium-high price range, especially for the 5080 model. It's about $3,400 for the RTX 5080 with the 18-inch SCAR 18. You go to the 5090 model, though, it's an $1,100 bump up to $4,500. That's a huge bump for maybe only 12 to 15% gain in performance. So if you're after the value, go for the 5080 version for sure. And in terms of the top competing, in terms of the laptops out there that have the best competition in 18-inch form factor, I'll just briefly tab through them in the list here that I already put together. So you have the SCAR 18, SCAR 18 5090, then you have the Legion 9i, probably the most anticipated 18-inch laptop that is coming out in July. In Asian markets, but in more like October, November timeframe for USA market. This has a 3D display that's native without 3D glasses, 4K 240 hertz, 16 by 10 aspect ratio, and dual native 1440, dual native with full HD plus 440 hertz. Super cool. DCI P3 display. If I could buy any high spec ultra premium machine, it'd probably be this one. I don't know. Just because of the 3D display, I think is going to be so cool. I talked about that more in detail in the full live stream, though it might be in part 1, 2, or 3, maybe 4. I'm not sure at what point I talked about it. Then you have the Acer Predator Helios 18. It is a good one, but I would buy the SCAR 18 over the Predator Helios unless the Helios 18 is a little cheaper, because the SCAR 18 has a lot of design improvements, like the toolless bottom, the 360-degree light bar, and I think the QHD display is a lot better than this UHD 120 hertz display. The MSI Titan also similarly has the Achilles heel of the 4K 120 hertz display, which again is not ideal, especially for a lot of games. You know, when you are looking to get maximum frame rates, it's not going to be ideal. The Razer Blade 18, on the other hand, has a dual native UHD 240 hertz, 1440 hertz, full HD plus. So you have the flexibility of going to the ultra high refresh rates if you want to. So in this scenario, I could theoretically take a UHD display if it's at least 240 hertz. You at least have the trade-off of being able to use more upscaling to get the same frame rate. The Alienware 18 Area 51M is also extremely promising and provides probably the best bang for the buck value on the market in 18-inch gaming laptops, which is crazy to say because, yeah, it's at $38.99, making it only a few $100s more to get the 5090 variant. So very, very good overall value. The Strix G18 with the 5080 is $3,059, and comparing that to the SCAR 18 5080, we're looking at $33.99, so $340 cheaper. So if you're after value and you don't care about all the RGB effects, go for the SCAR G18. It has the same vapor chamber, same cooling and thermal solution. and the 360-degree light bar. You can go for the Ryzen version of the G18 as well. I did not put that in here, but I could try pulling that up real quick. Let's go 9955. And I don't, okay, here it is. All right. So the Ryzen Strix G18 9955HX, and there's going to be an HX 3D version. We haven't added it to the list yet. Maybe it's not for sale officially yet. I'll poke my team member to see if they can find it and add it to the list. But basically, if you get the 5070 Ti with the 9955HX 3D, you get the 2024 chassis with less RGB effects, and some of the design improvements are missing from here, as well as a three-fan design with heat pipe solution instead of vapor chamber. It makes a difference. Like, there's some definitely downsides in terms of ergonomics. The display is also going to have older gen technology with QHD plus 240 Hertz, I believe, and no mini LED coverage. So a lot of trade-offs going to the Ryzen version. I did make a video about this, which may be the better one to go check it out. If you want to check it out, it's right here. It's also on my channel for my CES coverage. The MSI Raider A18 is your other option if you want to get the HX3D chip. So the Ryzen 9 9955HX3D. The downside here with the Raider, as well as the Titan, is there's no G-Sync or Advanced Optimus on these two laptops. You also, again, have the Achilles heel of the UHD 120 Hertz display, which I just don't find ideal. It's also going to be quite a bit more than the Scar 18 at $4,100. So you want to pay $700 more? Then that's an option. But the HX3D is the reason largely why it's more expensive. So those are kind of the main options. I would say those are going to be your primary alternative options. The biggest pros and cons to the Scar: amazing lighting, amazing display, super bright and vibrant, 240 Hertz, mini LED up to 1200 nits brightness. We tested it today at 612 nits sustained brightness with the Spider 5 Elite. We also only got about 95% P3 color gamut on the display, so not quite 100% of the P3 color gamut. HDR mode on the display is still bugged. We didn't get great display there. Now, one great thing about the Asus display is you do have a lot of options for multi-zone, strong, multi-zone balanced, one zone, or you can jump over to the HDR options and do vivid or true color, which is going to be a bit more of a neutered color look. If that's what you want. I personally would not use that. I might use regular HDR options, but lots of things are bugged with HDR in Windows. So I just leave HDR alone, leave it in SDR, and either do multi-zone strong or one zone. Those are the two that I think are the best. Now, for the ports, we have dual Thunderbolt 5s on here, which is great. A headset combo port, 3 USB-A 3.2s, an HDMI 2.1, an upward-facing Ethernet port, and a power port. Now, we did discover today that the power port does cause some wiggling. It does have a bit of a wiggle to it here, which I don't like. I think they should design this a little bit tighter. But yeah, it is what it is. I don't think it's going to be a big problem, but it's certainly an area that Asus can work on or should work on for some improvements. And there are, of course, 2 USB-A 3.2s over here as well. And really, we're only missing a full-size SD card slot to get the full suite of ports that a lot of the other 18-inch laptops have. So that's what I would say, Asus, add the full-size SD card slot for the creators out there that want to have access to their SD card slots on the go. All right, removing the bottom on this is incredibly simple. It's a latch, it pops open. I removed it and added it back about 5 times in about 30 seconds. It's super easy to do. It's really nice. And then it's the most convenient way I've ever seen a laptop for opening and closing the bottom of the chassis. In addition, there are quick release latches for the SSDs, so you can also upgrade your RAM and SSD without even needing a single set of tools, which I've never seen on a laptop before. So that's also giant thumbs up. Now for bloatware, there's McAfee on here. That's the Bane one, and there were some really annoying pop-ups. you got to stop this, Asus. You got to stop putting these pop-ups on people's laptops. They're like scary pop-ups for no reason. It's a brand new laptop, and no user should have to go through panic mode. There's malware on my computer. How did malware get on my brand new laptop? When there obviously isn't any, and it's just scare tactics to get people to spend money, and it's quite frankly shameful. So stop that. It's bad. I know that McAfee may be paying you a few bucks, but if you install McAfee, in my opinion, if you pre-install McAfee, it should not be actively doing anything ever. And if they want to activate McAfee's service, then that should be an additional click to enable it. But better yet, just give us a clean install of Windows, please. I don't want it popping up in the middle of my games. I don't want it interrupting my day-to-day use of the laptop, and I don't want it taking up my GPU, CPU resources. It's just bad. Stop it. Okay, enough of that. Keyboard and mouse is great on this laptop. You have a large glass trackpad. Fantastic to use. It feels great. I still think there are some improvements that could happen to gaming laptop trackpads in general, but this one is a good one for a traditional glass trackpad. The keyboard has a lot of secondary functionality that is also very good. I do enjoy the secondary functions on the keyboard, and the number pad also is large enough and has a lot of functionality built into it, so giant thumbs up. Overall, the keyboard works great, the backlight works great, but I do wish the backlight would get another step brighter, maybe even 2 steps brighter, so that it's as bright as the best laptops on the market. Let me just make sure I can see chat in case something is going wrong again. Okay. All right. So I'm going to answer questions here at the end because I'm trying to get this take done. Okay. Next on the list, we already talked about the display, but let's talk contrast. 600,000 to 1, and this is a mini LED display, so that means there is bloom on the laptop's display. It's going to be only noticeable when you have a bright object on dark background, and I did not demonstrate that for you today, but I've demonstrated it for you in the past. It just causes a little bit of a halo effect around that bright object on dark background. And OLED displays also have this, but the bloom effect, I think, is a little bit more minimized, so a little bit less noticeable. Overall, I think this mini LED display is super competitive with OLED options out there for both video editors as well as content creators and gamers who just want a super bright, vibrant, high response rate display. It's just a giant thumbs up. It's hard for me to complain about the display, especially given all the customization options that Asus gets you for the local dimming. So this is certainly an improvement over the 2023 SCAR 18 display because that one only had 1,000 dimming zones. This one has 2,000, so this one is definitely a step forward in the right direction. For UFO ghosting test, we did not see any ghosting. It looked flawless to me. Very, very clear image on the UFOs flying through the lanes. The laptop control software sadly has regressed. We have, Asus has split apart many of the settings into different areas of the software for no reason, and I think that Asus should revert these changes and, as a matter of fact, consolidate the software down to everything needs to come down to a central dashboard hub and not be split between my Asus and Armory Crate, and all the settings basically need to be accessible at 1 click and maybe at 2 clicks if you go here, you click on like here to go to overclock, and then you can then overclock in a separate window, but everything's accessible at 1 click from one place for a laptop. It's like they're trying to control desktop hardware, laptop hardware, motherboard hardware, just straight regular RGB hardware, all from like one centralized control software, and they're failing, in my opinion. That's why thousands of Asus users are jumping over to and that's why thousands of Asus users are jumping over to G-Helper to control their laptop's performance, because it gives you a central dashboard where all the settings are located, and it even gives you undervolting and overclocking options that are not available in Armory Crate. So I haven't done much testing with G-Helper myself, but I know a lot of users really, really like it. So I would say if you don't like Armory Crate, consider jumping over to G-Helper if it's supporting all of the SCAR laptop's features. I'm not sure yet. I haven't tested it. But just throwing that out there as a potential option, since Armory Crate needs some work, in my opinion, to make it as good as it used to be, once again. Now, speaker test so for speakers, we tested it. We got around 86 decibels, which is not particularly loud. It's also not particularly great bass, and the mids and highs are also not great. I would say the speakers are just a little bit above average. I gave them like an 8.6 rating. They sound the same as they did in 2023. And on such an expensive laptop, I would expect better speakers. Asus, you can definitely up the speaker quality. I think you can definitely enjoy your games with the speakers just fine. It's going to be an enjoyable gaming experience, an enjoyable speaker experience, just not nearly as good as something like the Razer Blade or the MacBook Pro, or even your iPhone is going to have way better speakers than this laptop here. So, all right. For fan noise testing, we had silent mode giving us around 70 watts total combined load and basically no noise generated, which is going to be good enough for casual older games or gaming on low FPS in some modern titles. Performance mode gave us great performance and 51 decibels of fan noise. Turbo mode gave us 54 decibels and great gaming performance. Manual max fan mode, I believe, was around 56 decibels and obviously maximum performance and slightly lower temperatures than turbo fan mode. All right. 8 to 64 RAM speed test showed us that the RAM in here is just average. Nothing special. Definitely going to be faster RAM on other laptops that go up to 6400 mega transfer, as well as laptops that offer RAM tightening support for the RAM timings, or you could also alternatively just buy faster RAM and put it in here. That's another option too. So if you like the SCAR and you want faster RAM, there's obviously options out there for upgrading it. I currently run Kingston Fury Impact RAM, and I bought that RAM in 2023, and it's faster than this RAM in 2025. So yeah. All right. There may be better options than Kingston Fury Impact. I just haven't done some RAM speed testing lately to find the best kit again in the last 2 years. All right. CrystalDiskMark gave us 6,800 for the write, 6,000 for the read. Very fast SSD. It's going to be great. It's not going to be as fast as the Gen 5 SSDs, and it's a little sad that you don't give you a Gen 5 SSD out of the box. All right. Cinebench R24. Let's see here. Cinebench R24, we got, let me pull up the value, because I want to say the number exactly correct if I can. For Cinebench R24, we got 2,128 for our multi-core and 133 for our single core, which is obviously great performance, but it's not as good as what we saw in other high-performance machines that can go up to a higher wattage. And when we actually tested this in Cinebench, we saw that the wattage seems to be capped around 150 watts. When in manual mode, I told it to go to 175. So we're missing 25 watts of performance that Armory Crate is basically taking away from us, I would say, because basically I think the firmware is limiting it to only 150 when it's supposed to go to 175. So Asus, you got some BIOS firmware tweaking to do to get this thing to go to the maximum possible performance that it should. And if it did 175, we would up those Cinebench scores by, I don't know, 25, 50 points probably. Not going to be huge, but definitely better performance than what we have right now. In addition, I would say that other laptops, the Legion Pro 7i, the Neo 16, the MSI Titan 18HX, are going to have higher CPU power limits, potentially up to 200 watts. And that's going to give you, closer scores. And that's going to give you scores closer to 2200 instead of 2150 or whatever we had here. So some minor performance being left on the table. Now, for TimeSpy, again, I'm going to try to pull up the numbers so we get the exact number correctly. In manual mode with a slight 50/100 overclock, we got 22,280 in TimeSpy GPU, 16,377 for CPU. And those are obviously excellent scores. We've seen several RTX 5080s only get around 21 to 22,000, so this is certainly an above average TimeSpy score, which is good. Good job on the TimeSpy score. All right, so Baldur's Gate 3, we saw some great performance up to 240 FPS on average with good 1% lows, no issues in Baldur's Gate 3. Counter-Strike 2 also had great performance with pretty much no performance issues. Cyberpunk 2077 ran really well with great performance. Elder Scrolls Oblivion, also great performance, 120 or so FPS. Oh, we didn't test Expedition 33. Okay, we gotta load up Expedition 33. Yes. You guys get one more benchmark because I accidentally skipped it, I apologize. It wasn't in my game favorite list. Okay. Opening the game. Oh, unless it's not installed, let's see. Okay, it is installed. Because I was playing on it on this laptop, so it should be installed. So, Expedition 33. We're going to get back to the last little bit of the summary here in a moment, but let's do this benchmark real quick. I got to pick an area of the game to benchmark. I think the most challenging, honestly, part of the game was during the initial opening phase. When there are so many NPCs running around. Though I haven't been able to play the game all the way through yet, so there might be more areas that are demanding. All right, let me get into... Let's get it refocused. Okay, so this area is getting 80 FPS. Let's check our graphics settings. DLSS is unbalanced though. So going to quality. Also, we're going to set it to epic, DLSS on quality. Everything else here is good. All right, we're going to apply that. And then I'm going to load. I'm going to load the 15-minute benchmark or save and see if that's a good area to benchmark the game or not. All right, good. Let's go ahead and run through the game. So we've got 70 FPS, 60 FPS. We're running over here to the super dense crowd area. And now I'm just going to run slowly in the circle around here. So you can see we're only getting 70 FPS on epic settings, 1% lows of 55, 52. So it's very smooth. Even though the FPS is low, we do get pretty consistent frame time graph. But you can see how demanding this game is. This game is insanely demanding. And unless you go to lower settings with higher upscaling, you're probably not going to get over 100 FPS in a lot of the game area. So, pretty interesting. All right, so I'm going to use that as the benchmark, I think. This area is a great area to do it. So 69, 53 for the SCAR 18 and Expedition 33. Yeah, super demanding game. All right, sweet. Now, back to completing the final summary here. God of War, we had excellent performance and no performance issues. Hogwarts also ran well, except for some 1% low stutters. Marvel Rivals, unfortunately, had bugged performance with a lot of stuttering. Nothing I could do seemed to fix the problem. We changed a bunch of settings, turned NVIDIA Reflex on, off, frame generation on and off. I think the game is bugged, or NVIDIA drivers are bugged right now, though it ran fine on the other systems, so it's weird. Then Monster Hunter Wilds, excellent performance, but we did run into some weird 1% stuttering as well when textures were being loaded in and out of the game. The Witcher 3, great overall performance, but again, a little weird stutter. So we had like some weird stutters going on in the last 3 games in a row, which was a bit odd. Makes me kind of want to do a system restart and retest those games, but I can't do that right now in the middle of the live stream because we're here at the end. But overall, performance on the Scar 18, very, very good. Build quality, the fit and finish of this machine has been excellent in my experience. The glass trackpad, the touchpad, the display, the webcam, mediocre. The speakers, mediocre, especially for a premium system. The lighting effects is the best lighting effects I've ever seen in a gaming laptop. The anime matrix on the back, gorgeous, beautiful. Port selection on here, very, very good, except for full-size SD card slot. Is it worth, $3,400? Probably. Like, it's a very competitive buy. The 5090 version at $4,500, that's a big ask. Harder to recommend that version. I think that one should be priced more like $3,900 or maybe $4,000 to make it a more competitive upsell price. But the toolless bottom, the 360-degree lighting, the chassis design, the coolness of the chassis when you play games, and the overall experience with Armory Crate is generally still pretty good, even though the settings are all messed up and the UI is not as good as it used to be. Overall, still good and reliable functioning control software, at least for gaming laptops. So in that sense, it's a thumbs up. Overall, I do like the Scar 18 and can definitely recommend the RTX 5080 version. 5090 version, tougher to recommend, but I'm just gonna say it's hard to recommend the 5090 version because of the price increase. If it was only a $500 price increase, I'd say, yeah, go for it. At $1,100 price increase, it's too much. So that's where I'm at right now with the 5090 Scar. But 5080 Scar seems like a good value, especially given all of the premium feature set. And I do think the anime matrix, the upgraded lighting, and the slight changes from the Strix G18 is probably worth the $340 if you're after those premium effects. But if you just want the performance, if you just want the performance and you don't care about the mini LED screen, then the Strix G18 might be even better value for you. Obviously, there are better value laptops out there on the market, but in terms of the Asus premium 18-inch laptops, these are the two that are most likely to be recommendable. Of course, there's always the 9955HX3D with the 5070 Ti. Don't know what the price will be on that one yet, but that one will also be potentially a better option than this one if you're after esports gaming performance, because of the HX3D's esports gaming on the CPU is just going to be better than the Intel 275HX. And if you haven't checked out my side-by-side benchmark comparison between the Intel 275HX and the 9955HX3D, I'll try to link it up in the corner over there or in the video description down below. It's definitely worth watching. The 9955HX is definitely the better gaming CPU in this generation. And it costs more, so that's the trade-off. Spend more money on it for the better performance. But if you want to know how much better, be sure to check out that video. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Brandon out. All right, so live stream chat. Done with this final summary review. Let's answer a couple questions, and that'll be it. All right. So Lance says, do you happen to know if the Dream Machine version is the same chassis as the XMG? Yes, it is, but they don't offer all the same things like warranty support, customer support, customization, and the BIOS will also be different. So it's not going to be quite as recommendable, in my opinion, as the XMG brand. Aya says, is it possible to disable the RGB but keep the backlit keyboard on? Not sure. That's a good question. Vesper says, firmware update would hopefully fix the GPU wattage issues. Yeah, I hope so. Gamer said, should I use laptop keyboard or another mechanical keyboard for gaming and normal? Laptop keyboard's great. on this one especially, because the keyboard wrist rests stay cool on the Scar 18. So not an issue using the actual laptop keyboard, especially if you're using the onboard display. If you're using an external monitor, that's when I would say use an external keyboard as well, so you can line up the monitor and the keyboard better. MG Rogue says, Asus are likely working on a new system BIOS update for the 25 Strix Scar that will further improve graphics performance with both the 5080 and 5090 released fairly soon. Interesting. MG Rogue, do you work for Asus? Are you an Asus insider here? I mean, I hope they will after they watch this video, if they're not already working on it, because I'm definitely going to send this to Asus and be like, hey, we ran into some BIOS issues. Can you repeat this? Is this performance problem repeatable on your systems? And if it is, they'll go in and fix the BIOS. It may just be my unit specifically, though. Gamer said, should I, okay. Good work, man. Keep up the spirit. Thank you, Luvi. Retro says, what about the G14 5070 Ti? Seems like an awesome laptop. Absolutely seems like an amazing laptop. And yes, I would recommend the new G14, especially the 5070 Ti version. I mean, I think the prices are probably pretty dang high in terms of value, but for a 14-inch chassis, it's the way I would go. I don't know, it seems better than all the other options out there on the market, at least on paper. I'm getting the new Scar 16 5090 in 4 days. I'm so excited. I hope you enjoy that. That's going to be a great laptop. Any coil whine? John Doe, I did not experience any coil whine in the series of tests I've ran, and I did test specifically for coil whine. You know, we could do a quick coil whine test just by putting it in silent mode, and then you run Cinebench at the same time. And that'll run wattage through. But let's go here, and we'll go here, and Cinebench R23, and we'll just load this up, and we're going to go to silent, and I'll rotate this camera, and I'll put my mic down there. Test, test. Okay. All right. So this is where we heard coil whine in the 2023 version, running Cinebench through the VRMs. So I've started the test. I do not hear any coil whine. All right, we can try switching to performance mode. I do not hear any coil whine. So yeah, I don't think coil whine is going to be an issue for this laptop. Asus, you know, I've mentioned this in the past, but Asus has basically ran additional quality control checks. Asus has ran additional quality control checks starting in 2024 for quiet room testing to prevent coil whine going through into their production laptops. And it seems to be helping. So, all right. Last question. For my Neo 17 2023, I only have coil whine when GPU load, not CPU. So that may be true. You could load, we could load TimeSpy 2 because it's a different set of VRMs, right? There's like, you look on a motherboard of the laptop, you have a row of CPU VRMs and a row of GPU VRMs, and the coil whine theoretically could come from one or the other. So I can load up TimeSpy 2 here on performance mode, which should give us a good idea if there's coil whine. Okay. Did you notice any dead pixels or screen bleed? I have not noticed any screen bleed or dead pixels, but there probably is some minor screen bleed if I were to put some pure black image on it, but I've not ever noticed it in day-to-day use under normal conditions. So, all right, so I'm going to load TimeSpy up here, and I'm going to switch camera mode again. Okay, so let's listen for coil whine as it loads in. Time Spy is loading still. So I pre-ordered 2 months ago, but Asus keeps delaying my order. Ouch. That sucks. I'm sorry. I think it'll still be worth the wait, probably. Gamer says, should I use laptop keyboard or another mechanical keyboard? I already answered this, Gamer. You can use the laptop keyboard if you want to with the laptop display. Okay, here we go. Let's listen to Coil Wine. I hear the fans whistling a little bit, but I don't hear any coil whine. The mic might pick some up, I don't know, but I don't hear any. So if I can't hear it and I'm only 10 inches away, I don't think you'll be able to hear it either. All right, so that's it for the live stream, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry about all the technical issues of getting it launched and set up and everything. Had 4 VODs between these. I'll try to link between them in the description and everything. But thank you so much, and thanks so much for the super chat. Appreciate everyone's support. Drop a like. Hit the subscribe button for more videos. We'll see you in the next one. Brandon out. Huzzah.